Most people think fiber is just fiber, and you know what? Yeah, it's important, but if I don't incorporate it today, it's not the end of the world. But in today's video, I want to talk about why fiber is so important, but more specifically, looking at the different types of fiber and why we should be making sure that we are having both types of fiber in our diet and not just focusing on one, or even not even thinking about the fact that there's two. I know a lot of people don't even know that, or they just feel like, you know what, it's fine, I'll be okay if I just have the one or not the other. So in today's video, I want to talk about why we need to be incorporating fiber, how much fiber we should be eating, and practical ways to incorporate that into your diet, and lastly, also talking about the different types of fiber, because that is so important to know. Before we start with the video, just a quick introduction. My name is Melissa Mnell. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm part of the Body 20 Nutrition Doctor team. And please do send us any questions if you have any via WhatsApp or email. Okay, fiber. Why is fiber so important? Why is it something that we talk about so often? We've made videos about this in the past, and I thought, you know what, today we're going to make another one because I really want to bring the point across that fiber should be very high on your priority list when it comes to your health and well-being and reaching your goals, especially if it is fat loss. But for general health and well-being, fiber should be a priority for you. Okay, so fiber is basically something we find in our fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds and legumes and so forth. And it is really important to be incorporating it into the diet, not just for gut health, but for a lot of other things as well. So we see fiber, according to a lot of research studies, actually lowers the cholesterol levels, which is really important. We need to be managing our cholesterol levels very effectively. And the best way to do it is through diet before we go on to medications. Medication is, of course, important if you need to use that, but we first want to see if we can't just manage it through our diet. So lowering cholesterol levels is something fiber can do very effectively. We've seen time and time again in the research. The next one is fiber is actually really good at managing our blood sugar levels, which again also helps with managing insulin resistance and managing our weight and fat loss. So if you are balancing your blood sugar levels, you can concentrate a lot better throughout the day, and also you don't have those insulin and sugar spikes leading to fat storage. So if we incorporate more fiber into our diet, we are definitely also managing our blood sugar levels a lot more effectively, which is in general really a good thing. On that note, we also know that fiber bulks up the meal, which makes you feel fuller and also for longer. So you tend to also eat less calories, and that is also a lot more effective if you do want to lose fat. So if you want to be in a calorie deficit, incorporating more fiber into your diet is definitely going to be the way to go. And then, of course, lastly, fiber is so important for gut health. We know that fiber-rich foods actually provide the nutrients to the gut bacteria, especially the healthy gut bacteria, to really help them thrive and to colonate and to really keep the gut healthy and happy. And we know if the gut is happy, our brains are happy, because 90% of your serotonin, which is your feel-good, happy neurotransmitter, is actually made in your gut. So it is super important to incorporate fiber into your diet. Now, how much fiber do we need? So generally speaking, between 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. Women can go for about 25 or even more if you want, but then men also a minimum of 30 grams of fiber per day. But now you're like, okay, but how do I incorporate that into my diet? How does that look? So practically, for example, we can hit about 10 grams of fiber for breakfast by having a half a cup of oats with half a cup of berries, and can be frozen berries, for example, and then a tablespoon of chia seeds. That's already 10 grams of fiber just there. You can, of course, add your liquid and your other nice things to your oats to zwish it up if you want, but that's the basics, and there you get about 10 grams of fiber already. Next up, snack. We can do a medium apple with a tablespoon of peanut butter. That gives you a 5-gram fiber content right there, easy snack on the go. Lunch, we can do a nice salad bowl where you do half a cup of chickpeas, or if you don't like chickpeas, you can mix it up with maybe some quinoa or brown rice and some mixed vegetables. Think maybe things like cucumber, tomato, cabbage. It could be raw veggies, it can be cooked veggies, spinach, carrots, anything, and the more color the better. That's going to really incorporate and increase your fiber content. You can maybe then mix in some olive oil and your protein of choice to make it a complete meal. There you're also hitting around 8 to 10 grams of fiber in your lunch. Then for mid-afternoon snack, you can maybe do a bit of 2 tablespoons of hummus with carrot sticks and or celery sticks. So it's going to give you another 4 to 5 grams of fiber. And then last, and the veggies is about a cups worth of raw veggies. And then lastly, for dinner, we do half a cup of cooked brown rice with your protein of choice and some salad or mixed veggies on the side, maybe broccoli, or salad, like I say, or something like that. Again, getting you to around 8 to 10 grams of fiber. So that's quite an easy way to incorporate it. It's not a massive amount of food. You can really just by making sure you are adding fiber to each of your meals, or fiber-rich foods to each of your meals, you can actually nail that 30 grams of fiber per day. A very important note that I do want to make on fiber is that fiber works very effectively, but it is very important to combine it with enough water or fluid intake throughout the day. Because unfortunately, if you are racking up your fiber content in your diet, but you're not having enough liquids or fluids with that, you might be making the situation worse, and you might be contributing to your gut becoming constipated, and then you feel like, but I can't have fiber because it actually makes me constipated. So if that is the case, you definitely need to make sure you are consuming a sufficient amount of liquids, especially water, throughout the day. So think about 1.5 to 2 liters of water per day. If you are on the heavier side, you can up it even to 2.5 to up to 3 liters of water per day. Or if you don't necessarily like water, make sure you flavor up your water with some slices of lemon or some fruit or some cucumber or a little bit of ginger or mint leaves or anything like that. Or you can do tea, especially herbal teas like rooibos. Try not to add any sweeteners or anything like that to get in some of the liquids with a bit of a different taste than just plain water. So that is really important. The other thing that I also want to mention is that fiber it's important to really slowly incorporate it over a period of time, especially if you are someone that hasn't been having fiber generally or regularly. So just like, for example, if you haven't gone to the gym for a while and then you go back to the gym and you hit that session really hard, you do leg press and you go for squats and you go heavy weights and that type of thing, and the next day you literally cannot walk, and then you're out for 2 to 4 days after that. That's the same with fiber. So if you haven't had fiber for a while, or you generally don't eat fiber, but you feel like, yes, I should be incorporating it, which you should be, I do recommend that you slowly introduce it into your diet over a few days or even over a week or so, just to make sure that you are incorporating it slowly so that it's not going the other way where you feel too bloated or feel constipated because your body isn't used to digesting that fiber, because it is quite hard work for the body to digest the fiber, which is also a positive thing because that means it's burning calories, and that also means that not 100% of the calories that you consume in that meal is being absorbed because it is so hard for the body to digest, so it kind of just excretes it. So you are winning in that sense. So fiber all around is just amazing, and you should be incorporating it into your diet as fast as possible. So now let's talk about the different types of fiber, because this is also really important, because if you're just having insoluble fiber, for example, which is an easier type of fiber to get in, you might also be running into some trouble. So we get two types of fiber. We get soluble and insoluble fiber. So insoluble fiber, think of the roughage. So think of your hard, crunchy parts of vegetables, for example, like celery stick, the stringy parts of celery, your whole grains where it has the brown part on it, whole wheat bread, for example. So think things, vegetables, whole wheat bread, those types of products. Nuts and seeds often have insoluble fiber in them. Insoluble fiber forms the bulk of the stool, so it really just gives the bulk of that stool, and it also gives a lot of nutrients that's being fermented by the gut bacteria and used to really colonize and keep the gut healthy. Then together with that we have soluble fiber. So soluble fiber, like it says, is soluble, so it actually can dissolve, whereas insoluble cannot dissolve in water. So soluble fiber dissolves in water, and then it forms a nice thick gel that actually make sure that insoluble fiber is then kind of dissolved and can move out of the gut. The soluble fiber is also very effective in decreasing the absorption of cholesterol and also glucose and sugar into the bloodstream. So that's how it manages the blood sugar levels as well as the cholesterol levels. So we need both of these fibers. Soluble fiber we find in your, like for example, psyllium husk. I have an example here. We have some psyllium husk, some fruits, for example, your flax seeds, chia seeds, legumes like chickpeas and those types of things have soluble fiber, and then your insoluble fiber, like I said, can be things like your sourdough bread, it's things like rice, for example, or whole grains and that type of thing. So to drive my point home, I am going to do an experiment that I actually saw on Instagram. So basically how this experiment works is I have 2 bottles, and I'm going to take this slice of bread and I'm going to divide it up into both of these bottles. I'm just going to break it up a bit. So this would be your insoluble fibers. I'm also going to add some rice to it. So just pretend that this is your meal that you had. So I'm going to add rice. And in the one bottle, I'm just going to add water. And in the other bottle, I'm actually going to add water with some psyllium husk in it. So here's the water. I'm just going to add some water to this one. And then in the other one, I'm going to add water together with a tablespoon of psyllium husk. So psyllium husk, like I mentioned, is soluble fiber. So now we have both. In this cup, we're going to have insoluble and soluble fiber. I'm going to add that. Add a little bit more water here. And then we're going to leave that for half an hour. And then we're going to see what the results are. Okay, so it's been a half an hour. We have our psyllium husk mixed with water and just plain water. So let's have a look at what we have. Right, so this is just basically insoluble fiber. So you see it's basically just water passing through, and then this one will be more like a gel formed mixture like that. So you can see. So that's why it's super important to have both fibers, soluble and insoluble fiber, because we see just having insoluble fiber might become a problem because it might be causing a bit of constipation. So we want the mixture of the soluble and insoluble fiber, not just insoluble fiber. So let's say, for example, you feel like, but I can't have psyllium husk, it causes too much bloating, because a lot of people do. We see that in the research that the golden kiwis, 2 of them a day, actually work really well for a replacement for psyllium husk. So I got these golden kiwis at Woolies, so it is something you can actually find in our stores, and you can have maybe 2 of them every day if you feel like you can't tolerate the psyllium husk. But of course, you know that soluble fiber is in other fruits and foods as well, like for example your oats also is high in soluble fiber, and then other types of seeds like chia seeds and flax seeds as well. I hope this has been helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.